What a great start to the Thomas Frank era. 2 wins out of 2 and not even a single goal conceded. We'll be giving our views on the matches so far, and with the Champions League draw now out, we'll be discussing just how well we think we can do in that competition as well. We've also got transfer windows slamming shut in a matter of days. Just how damaging were those missed deals for the club? Keep it right here. You're listening to the Crowing Cockerel podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Crowing Cockerel podcast. I'm Graham. I'm here with Mark. Hello, Mark.
Hey, how we doing?
And welcome back, Thom.
It's blooming lovely to be back. I can now reveal that I've returned from my stint as an undercover Man United goalkeeping coach. My work is done, and it's great to be back.
Very effective.
Great to have you back, Thom. Loads to get our teeth into because, of course, what's happened since we last sat down and we did our predictions and was that the season started. Fantastic start for Thomas Frank. Going back to the Burnley game, really, really good start. To play a promoted team, 3 o'clock on a Saturday, lovely sunny weather, and Richarlison gets off to a flying start with 2 absolutely fantastic goals, and he's probably already won goal of the season with the overhead Klinsmann-esque finish.
Was, wasn't it? Yeah.
The second goal. So
who saw that coming? Let's be honest.
Well, anybody that's seen him play for Brazil, because he scored one in the World Cup as well, didn't he? And then, of course, Johnson did what Johnson does, which is just got on the end of something and finished superbly. So,
I
fantastic.
do believe one of us 3 predicted that might happen.
Well, that's because we're experts. And so, and then, of course, went up to the Etihad. We played the promoted team. They're always difficult. Luckily, our next game was always going to be our gimme. Went to the Etihad. Once again, absolutely wiped the floor with them. How they win anything, I have no idea, because when we play them, they look absolute rubbish, don't they? I don't think, So another really, really good performance, all joking aside. Really, once we took the lead, brilliant game management, I thought. Fantastic. But let's go back to the Burnley game. What was the real standout things that you guys noticed or wanted to talk about?
The Burnley game set the tone. Actually, I think you could probably say that the PSG game set the tone, but it was the level of the pressing, and I want to come back to this later on. But just that initial buy-in from all the players, that the energy in the press, deciding when to press, deciding when to hold our shape. For me, that was ignoring all the brilliant things like the goals and, the fact that we got a win under our belt, first game, 3 o'clock kickoff, promoted team. You need that to be a home banker if you want to get off to a good start. But ignoring all that, just the fact that it was a performance that went, okay, so the players have bought into this. And especially when you think about when style was so much of the conversation last year under Ange. And of course, he got us that trophy. I think we might talk a little bit more about the comments since. But there was a style that Ange played, and it is decidedly different from Frank's style. So to see that buy-in from the players, to see that dedication, and to see that energy in the press, that was really, really pleasing.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about, didn't we, after the PSG game, looking ahead to the Burnley game, and obviously you couldn't get 2 more different games. And it was, what is that flexibility? What is the tactics going to be? Obviously, we played a back 3 against PSG. That reverted, as we thought it would do, to the back 4 against Burnley. One of the most exciting things for me in that game was looking at our midfield, Gray, Bergvall and Sarr, 3 young midfielders. And you could absolutely see that midfield being our midfield for the next 5, 6, 7 years. To have all 3 of those in there right from the start on opening day of the season was bold.
Put my hands up. I was initially, I think I messaged you guys when the team news came out. I wasn't quite sure what formation was being played because, of course, we know that Gray has that ability to play in different areas. But yeah, it bodes really well. I do wonder if that was his confidence in them, which is fantastic. But also that thing of Palhinha hasn't had as much, perhaps, game time as everyone else. Maybe didn't want to rush him in. So, but yeah, even so, to throw those 3 in, like you say, bold, and it paid off.
Yeah, it did. It did. And the performance was pretty good in the end. It needed sorting out. And that was the one thing that's strong for me is actually, although we went in at half-time 1-0 up, I thought we were struggling. That midfield three was struggling a little bit. Bergvall wasn't really in the game. Sarr and Gray weren't connecting particularly well. And whatever changed at half time, it seemed to release Bergvall. And once he starts getting on the ball, he's very, very dynamic. And therefore, he's creating space quickly. We were a bit more direct in our passing and a bit quicker. That something was said at half time. Because actually, the first half, although Burnley didn't really have any real chances, they were pinning us back a little bit. So it wasn't fantastic. But what was encouraging is that the faith was kept with that midfield three, and they became more dynamic in that second half. And we were a lot better in the second half in terms of the press. But you're absolutely right. I think the faith showed in certainly Bergvall and Gray after the season they had last year. Because the easy thing to do would be, well, the league form was so poor because we were having to play Gray at centre back, Bergvall in midfield all the time, Sarr, buzzing around them because he could get through games. But we lost so many games that we don't want to be going back to that. We want experience in there every game. But of course, the squad has some holes still.
It's interesting, isn't it? But that squad does, because one of the things we discussed pre-season was the fact that first 11 is pretty strong, but then there's nothing underneath it. But then all of a sudden, obviously Kudus has come in, Palhinha's come in, and then all of a sudden you look at our bench and actually you think, wow, we've got Solanke on there, we've got the likes of Bentancur on there, you've got guys coming on, like, Tell, for instance, Danso, and you look at that and you think, oh, hang on, actually, that's not a bad bench either. And maybe it wasn't quite as bad as we first thought, really. And, you add another one or two to that, and all of a sudden you've got a pretty decent 17, 18 players that you can rotate around and not weaken that team too much.
Yeah, but it wasn't just about the perception of the bench and that second 11. It was also the perception of some of the players that you felt perhaps hadn't quite hit the mark. So we're all loving Richie at the minute, but let's face it, he's had a pretty average couple of years with us. Injuries being a massive part of that. I did hear a fantastic stat around the games, and it was something along the lines of that he's up there with the best goals per minute across the Premier League. If you take his minutes of appearances, which have been reduced because of injury, his output is right up there. And of course, he's had a ridiculous start to the season, which has obviously left Solanke on the bench, which seriously impacts Graham's prediction that he's going to be our top scorer, which I am only too delighted about.
Well, I hope I'm wrong, but the thing with Richarlison, he can be great. He can be great for 5, 6, 7 games, but then he gets injured. And going back to what you said, Mark, about you look at our bench, yes, it is good, but we do have a history of real big injury problems and things happening over and over again. And we've got a lot more games this season. So what we don't want to be stuck with is a situation where we are having to pay Gray, and not being disparaging or being negative about Gray, but he is the one that probably, from my point of view, is the one that needs more coaching and development to be a first-time player, because we've forgotten he's so young. He's a child, basically. One season at Leeds, he's had last season where he played centre-back. He's not the finished article. He wasn't bought as the finished article, and he shouldn't be the first rotation. For me, the amount of competitions we're in this season, he needs to play in the League Cup, he needs to play in the FA Cup against the weaker teams, come on as substitution, which is happening at the moment to see games out. Absolutely fantastic. What we don't want is Bentancur, who hasn't got a fantastic fitness record. He had that horrible injury in his ankle, so hopefully that's all sorted now. But he does also like a tackle from a long way away from the ball sometimes. Let's start here and slide all the way over there, which looks great when it comes off, but also gets him booked quite regularly. So he's talking suspensions and things like that. So it's good that Thomas Frank feels that he can put these players in. We can rotate that full midfield three. But with Basuma reportedly going, it doesn't leave us an awful lot in there if Sarr gets an injury, because he has been absolutely fantastic the first part of this season, hasn't he? I mean, he's
carried on his form from pre-season, isn't he?
Yeah,
we were saying he was probably our standout player in pre-season, and probably not for the reasons you'd expect. I mean, he obviously got a couple of goals. He certainly seems to have been released into a more attacking role, isn't it, this season? Whereas before he was that sort of defensive sitting in front.
Absolute box to box now, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's clear Frank likes him as well, because Frank called him out during pre-season, saying all the players are doing a great shift, but he specifically called out Pabsar. So yeah, I think weirdly enough, I always like it when Bentancur's there, just because he's got that experience, he's got that nous, but it's almost becoming more important that Sarr is on that team sheet first, and that's credit to him. I don't think we can finish talking about Burnley either without saying how good Kudus was on his debut. I think it's clear that he's going to own that right side of the pitch now, and exciting.
Yeah, he's going to be very exciting to watch. It's a bit like when Kulusevski joined the club. I didn't know much about Kulusevski. I knew a little bit more about Kudus, but what surprised me about Kulusevski and Kudus when they've come in is how strong they are.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, so and to win free kicks and do that, and where Kudus is impressing me a little bit more than Kulusevski has is when he comes back. He seems to be very useful defensively as well, protecting Porro. And Porro's started the season very well as well. And hopefully that's going to carry on. And I wonder how high the pinnacle of their partnership can be, because they could be absolutely fantastic. Because if you pin down Kudus, you've got somebody that can pin a ball in from 30, 40 yards away. And it could be an absolute weapon. But what we need to be careful of is relying on him too much. And the one thing that I do think I want to see from him is his ability to get his head up. He needs to be not all the time wanting to hold the ball and taking it around three players, because there were times, certainly on the counter-attack and the transition, where if he released the ball quicker, we were in. But he wanted to hold it and run with it. And we might come back to it, but I'll say it again, and I'll say it until it actually happens. We need to bring someone in that can pass the ball quickly and progressively. Because at the moment, everybody wants to carry it around and nobody wants to do anything first touch. It slows everything down. Bergvall is probably the one against Burnley that started doing that second half, which is great, and that's why we were better second half. But we've got an awful lot of dribblers at the moment and ball retention specialists. It'd be nice if we had somebody that could stick a ball through like Maddison can, outside of the foot, in the channels.
It was really good to see that in the absence of Son on the left-hand side, Johnson filled that role and came up with a goal.
Both games were just typical Johnson games. He didn't really do anything apart from make those runs like against Burnley. And kind of to your point, Graham, he made that run 2, 3, 4 times. As soon as we got on a potential counter-attack, I was watching him because he's one of my favourite players, and he would just bomb straight through the middle, make that run. And there's a time, maybe a couple of occasions, where Kudus could have played that pass and put him through. And again, it's like we've said in previous episodes, it's no fluke that he scores the goals that he scores and gets in those positions, because he is making those runs time and time and time and time again. And he is really, and it's strange because, like I say, he doesn't really do anything else. You don't see him getting involved in the game, in the build-up or anything. He is just there to get on the end of those chances, and he does it so well. It's strange, really.
I've heard it and seen it mentioned elsewhere that he is absolutely elite at knowing where he needs to be at certain times. So when to make that out to in run, when to go outside, when to hold the touchline. What he isn't a Son type winger. He's not going to whip an amazing ball in. But if he makes an out to in run, that means that Spence is going to get space outside. If he makes an out to in run, it's going to give Kudus an opportunity to cut across the 18-yard box. It's not as simple as, well, he doesn't have 10 dribbles. Sometimes you need a player that is just going to occupy defenders.
It's selfless, isn't it? It's selfless play. It's almost like it's the opposite of Kudus in a way, because he's not eye-catching in any way. I would love to see his stats. I'd love to see how many touches he gets on the ball. I'd love to see that sort of thing, because you hardly ever notice him on the ball, but he's got 2 and 2.
Yeah, and the first goal against Burnley, that was that was proper confidence, sky high.
He's
striker.
icy cold, isn't it? When he gets the opportunity,
that was a proper good finish. Yeah.
He's really matured into. It feels like he's, like you say, there's a confidence about him where he's like, I know what I'm good at, and he's really worked on that. And as I say, he's 2-2. He was our leading scorer last season, and you back him when he's in that position. You absolutely and that really is where you compare him to Son, because
Yeah. You feel like he's going to score that
Son
one.
would stick them away all the time as well. The only issue that Johnson has is because he doesn't contribute that much else. Even that statement is unfair because he does, as you just said, he makes a lot of runs off the ball. He's doing a lot of selfless stuff for the team. He's keeping the shape, but he's not doing that obvious eye-catching stuff. I'm absolutely convinced he doesn't have lots of touches on the ball. So if he doesn't get the goals, that's the problem, because it's then, well, what's he doing? What else is he actually bringing to the party? So that's the only problem that he has, is that, and that's why I say you can't see him as a winger. He is a forward, because it's the same conversation as you have with a centre forward. A centre forward has to score goals. If he's not scoring goals, he's going to have that question mark about his performance. Whereas midfielders and wingers, like you say, a traditional winger has that kind of, like Kudus we've just said, he has other stuff he brings to it. So that's why he will always be under pressure, because unless he's getting goals and getting assists, and again, it's not fair to expect him to do that every single game, but what else is he bringing to the party? And that is where he gets criticism from some people when he goes on runs where he's not scoring and not contributing in that way.
I think you've probably hit the nail on the head and described what sort of player he is just by explaining what will happen when he doesn't have the stats and the contribution to those stats. So if we're saying that if he's not doing that, we're basically playing with 10 men, well, that probably tells you that he's a striker more than a wide player like Kudus, because Kudus can have a pretty rubbish game, but he'll win free kicks, he'll defend with Porro, he'll be strong. He might not create anything, but he's going to be useful. He's going to be a lump no matter what happens. Whereas Johnson isn't that type of player at all, is he?
No.
Do we need to go back and say what our predictions were for Burnley?
Well, so we all predicted the win. So we all get 1 point for that. Nobody predicted 3-0. I think, Tom, you were closest with a 3-1. So, no points for the correct scoreline. And I predicted Brennan Johnson. But anyway, let's move on to Man City. We said it's our guaranteed 3 points, even though all three of us were not brave enough to predict that we were going to win that game.
Yeah. So, well done, Mark, for that, for the first one. Now, as you say, we didn't predict a win against Man City. None of us predicted a win against Man City. Did any of us get a goal scorer in there?
I went for Johnson again. So, I get another point.
Well done.
He's running away with it already. The problem was we were making these predictions after City absolutely destroyed Wolves away 4-0 and looked good doing it. And I know the Wolves have had a bit of a jittery start, but I cannot believe we should be talking about how good we were, and we will talk about how good we were. But just briefly, City were awful. They lacked so much energy.
They were very subdued, weren't they? And it was surprisingly comfortable.
But to your point, Tom, of our press, and you brought this up, about the Burnley game, the press was so good that they just started going long.
Yeah.
And we were just getting the ball back so easily because the press absolutely nailed them down. And this is where I hold my hands up, because I wasn't that excited about Palhinha, to be honest. I thought we might as well just kept Højbjerg. I'll be honest, that was my view. My goodness gracious me. That guy is, if he carries on playing like that, he is absolutely elite. The number of tackles and blocks and throwing himself in front of things, but with quality, winning tackles with strength. And
last season that he played for Fulham, he had the Premier League high for number of tackles and interceptions in the league that season. That's why he got the move.
And he was good on the ball as well. He didn't give it away. He was more progressive than I thought it was. So, my big thing with Højbjerg was that he'd love to go backwards all the time. Palhinha didn't. He was looking for a forward pass. He made Sarr and Bentancur better in that game because they felt confident with, and he made Romero and Van de Ven look like Rolls Royces that they are, because they don't have to run around fighting fires all the time.
That energy level. So the thing that, like I said, that pleased me in that Burnley game was that intensity. So early in the season, everybody bought in. It went up a level in that City game. And that point you just made about Paulinho, you do not get Romero bombing past the midfield to tackle Haaland in their half.
Yeah.
Unless he knows that he's got a solid midfield set behind him.
Well, you could argue that based on last season.
Yeah, but there wasn't that solid midfield behind him at that point.
What I mean is, it's not a problem now because we've got. That doesn't matter that he's doing it.
But especially that second half, and I want to go back to a point that I alluded to before, and something that I wanted to mention across these two games that I've noticed. That energy, especially in the second half, the energy was still there all the way to the end. And I only have one concern, and that is last year we got battered by injuries because of the high energy we were playing under Ange. This is a different sort of energy. It does seem more controlled. But if we continue to do that as games progress, that's a difficult level of energy to maintain. It reminds me of early Klopp. And do you remember sort of early Klopp? People were like, oh, wow, this is fantastic. And then the injuries started to come and they tailed off. And it took him maybe another season and a half before they properly kicked into gear and they had a big enough squad to do what they needed to do. So over the two performances, fantastic. That high energy press, brilliant. I've just got that concern that I really hope that we're looking after these players, that you've got the medical team looking at all the metrics, because we cannot have another season where we're decimated that much by injury.
We've had a fantastic start of the season. Thomas Frank really has impressed us with the way that he set up tactically in both games and changed things around in the PSG game as well. It's been fantastic. We look a really, really good, solid team. But he's able to play Van de Ven and Romero because they're not injured and they're not suspended. And they are a absolutely fantastic top-end defensive partnership.
Yeah.
We've only played games once a week, so he hasn't had that period of tiredness. Angie's record when he was playing games once a week, generally okay.
Well, let's just, before you go on, I know you've got some stuff you want to go, but let's just remember the first 12 games of Angie's reign. We were top of the league. We were playing football we've never seen before, and we were top of the league. And Ange was the best manager that we'd ever had. So we're 2 games in.
Yeah.
We shouldn't go over the top, and equally we shouldn't forget that it started off so well under him.
Yeah, I think it's the right decision of the club to change, looking at it with a few months now. But I cannot believe when I look at the social media and I look at pundits and things like that, the amount of bashing of somebody that won us a trophy and almost dismissing the fact that he did that with the injury crisis he did. Now, you could argue he caused that injury crisis and that's why he had to deal with it. But if he didn't have that injury crisis and he was dealing with the fit team, we know that he got results.
Yeah.
Because he did. If you look at the stats when Van de Ven and Romero were playing, our win percentage was 50-odd%, 53%, something like that. That gets you top 6, if not top 5 in the season. So, and he did it the first season. He didn't do it the second season. We all know that. We can put Ange to bed now, but the bashing needs to stop. He's gone. So if you didn't like him, he's gone. So why do you care that much anyway? He won a trophy, which is the reason we're in the Champions League. He played a different style of football, and he needed a fit squad to do it. He didn't, and that's why he's no longer at the club, because we couldn't win enough games in the league and other things were prioritised.
So it's interesting because one of the things I picked up on or went through whilst I was watching the City game was obviously Ange was always criticised for how cavalier and aggressive and how everyone used to just push forward. And that's one of the things that, the haters used to cry on about all the time. And yet I was there watching us away to Man City and I'm watching them have a goal kick and Van de Ven is defending against their striker about 25 yards out from their goal. And that's what indirectly led to the second goal because the press was so extreme. And obviously they had nowhere to go and it was a mess up by the goalkeeper. But it just made me smile thinking, because like you say, there's this narrative of how Thomas Frank has changed everything. And yet I'm thinking, I'm pretty sure I never saw Van der Ven that far up from an opposition goal kick under Ange. It's an even more aggressive press in that particular situation than we had before. And I just found it quite sort of ironic. But I have to say, I'm so pleased that we beat Man City, because up until that point in the week, I had been in a foul mood because of what had happened at the start of the week and I don't even want to say his name anymore. Well, no, I will say his name, but with the Eze situation, because I was so angry, so angry, and so upset about that whole situation for so many reasons. And then the Man City came along, and it's amazing what 3 points can do, isn't it? But yeah, like that whole, and we may as well just touch. I don't want to talk about transfers too much, because again, so much of it is media talk and not much substance to it. But yeah, the Eze thing upset me so much, because for so many reasons. Like I was angry at myself because I believed the hype. I believed the media. Everything you were listening to and reading was saying, yeah, it's a done deal. It's penciled in. It's fine. We're just waiting for Palace to buy someone, and then he's come in. And then I'm angry at the media for doing that to me. And then I'm angry that once again, it seems that nothing has changed, that all of our transfer stuff is on the back pages all the time. And I swear it doesn't happen to other clubs the way it happens with us. I do not see Liverpool, Man City, Man United's transfer dealings all over the media like I do with Spurs. And again, maybe it's just my algorithm, I don't know. But so I was angry at that. And then obviously I'm angry at the fact that we didn't get to buy this fantastic player. And then I'm even more angry at where he's ended up. And so I was in a terrible mood for about 3 days.
Did you enjoy your holiday, Mark?
Well, and I was on holiday, yeah. I was meant to be on holiday. But then we play Man City, we beat them, and everything's fine again.
I do think it's worth touching on the whole ridiculousness of the transfer window, and how we're men of a certain age, and yet you end up being like a child, don't you? You're just grasping at things that you don't know where all this stuff comes from. They must be briefed. Somebody, if you really think it through, there must be underlying stuff going on. They must be fed stories from certain sources or whatever to get this message out there. And it's ultimately, everything has to be updated every 5 seconds. So, you end up getting the same thing, and because you told it 10 times, you start believing it's true.
Yeah.
But really, all that's happening, you're just repeating the same message. And it sets in your head, and you think, and then you don't know what's happening. But at the end of the day, the optics are really bad, aren't they? To come out,
and that is the worst thing.
After winning the trophy, to then sack that manager, bring someone else in after a break, which I don't really have a problem with. That's just life, isn't it? Then to do an interview where you say we want to win stuff. Then we had that day, didn't we, where we signed Kudus, and Morgan Gibbs-White was off to his medical. And for a split second, you started thinking, oh my God, everything's actually being backed up. We've spent £110 million on 2 really, really good Premier League players within a day. And they're for positions that we really need. So fantastic. Let's get on this. Then, of course, Morgan Gibbs-White falls through. And that, again, it's frustrating, but that can happen. I don't think we'll ever know really what went on either way, but again, it's typical Spurs, isn't it? That this.
Well, so we're going to say the word that I know infuriates you more than any other word in the dictionary. It brings out the Spursy again, isn't it?
Yeah,
it brings back the memes.
It's just an excuse for it to be brought up again and again and again.
Yeah, we're the only club
quickly.
We're the only club that can put an offer in that matches a guy's transfer release clause and get sued for it.
Yeah.
That's never happened.
But this was the most frustrating thing about this situation, because the Eze situation was always going to be frustrating, but it's more so because we just did that with Morgan Gibbs-White. There's 2 things, and they both can't be true. Either we were in for Eze, or we weren't in for Eze.
Yeah.
And after the Morgan Gibbs-White situation, if we were in for Eze, get him. Pay the money, get the deal done. Because the history was there. Hang on. The history was there with Arsenal. He'd been linked before we were linked so strongly with him. All the rumours were he was going to Arsenal, but they were seeming to keeping their powder dry. So So my point is, if we'd already made a botch up of the Morgan Gibbs-White situation, and that seems clear that we did, or maybe some of it is out of our control, but it obviously wasn't handled very well. If we were out for Eze, if there was any truth in it at all, get the deal done. And either that is true and we didn't, and that's why we look stupid, or there wasn't, and he was always going to Arsenal. I'd love to believe it's the latter. I don't think it is. I think there was enough information out there to suggest we were out for Eze, that we were negotiating, and it wasn't just a case of paying the money. If we were going to get Gibbs-White and Eze, we had the money from the Gibbs-White deal to make sure the Eze deal definitely happened. So for me, we just didn't pay the money. We didn't get the deal over the line, and that's what made us look fools.
The most likely thing that I've sort of pieced together over the Eze thing is that he wanted to sign for Arsenal. He always wanted to sign for Arsenal, but he's a professional footballer, and he also wanted to leave Crystal Palace. Ultimately, Arsenal, because apparently he'd already had discussions with Arsenal, because I do not believe for 1 second that you bring up a player in the afternoon and they've decided on a contract that when it's a £60 million purchase, nothing would ever work that quickly. It goes through solicitors, it goes through,
Yeah, the whole thing was not interested, coming to Spurs, Havertz gets injured. Okay, well, we better buy Eze. And then 2 hours later, he's an Arsenal player.
No, it's all been lined up. It's all been lined up, hasn't it? So they've basically said, right, this is the deal that we'll give you if you come to us at the, and then they call off because they feel that they want to spend that budget somewhere else. Then that becomes more important, and they've come back. And again, there is a story, no idea if it's true, but there's a story that Eze actually rang Arteta and asked him to sign him because he wanted to sign for Arsenal. So we've just been played, and the fact, and what is most frustrating about that, we allow ourselves to be played, and it, you can see it happening again with another target. Anybody that's linked with Chelsea and Spurs, Arsenal and Spurs, Liverpool and Spurs, you always get the feeling that Spurs are being used to drive a deal elsewhere.
Mm.
And that is a small club mentality. Now, what I do like is the fact that we are trying to have conversations with players that are in that bracket. I'd much prefer that than be scared away and end up just going for that lower bracket that aren't being targeted. We want players that should be playing at the top end of the Champions League, at the top end of the Premier League, because that's what's going to improve us. And we're going to get burnt quite a lot until we are.
But why does it have to be so public? This is the thing that grates on me. And the trouble is, to your point earlier, it doesn't matter what the truth is.
No,
it doesn't matter what actually happened.
The optics are terrible.
Optics. It's just, and again, it's just the whole thing that, again, we talked about before. I'm just fed up with us being the banter club. Because, we won the Europa and all of a sudden the heat was off us and it was all on Arsenal for always finishing second. And then all of a sudden, it's back on us. We concede 2 late goals against PSG. Spursy, Morgan Gibbs-White, got sued. Spursy, Eze, he's definitely signing. 2 hours later, he's an Arsenal player. Spursy. It's just, again, it just then brings everything back again. Even though we thought that we'd left that behind, it's now back. And whether any of that is under our control or not is irrelevant. The fact is that that's now the narrative again.
And let's swing it all the way back around again to the positive, which is why that City win was like, okay, actually, you can call us what you like, but we've just gone to the Etihad and we put on, I think, one of our best performances for 6-8 months.
It was just a really mature performance, wasn't it?
It was such a good performance. And then on top of that, you've got United at Grimsby. So there you go. The heat is off.
Yeah, there's always another club that's in a worse position, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's West Ham, so it's even better.
Yeah. But I just hope that by the time we have another chat, it'll be the end of the transfer window and something has happened that's meant that we feel that we're in a better position and we've got players in that, whoever that may be.
As we're recording this, the Champions League draw was made, a couple of hours ago. And I would say we've got to be pretty blooming happy with it.
Absolutely.
Well, apparently the Europa League was an easy win because it didn't have Champions League quality teams in it.
Yeah.
So it's good because we're just playing half the people we played in the Europa League to win that.
Yeah, exactly.
So got Frankfurt and Bodo Glimt together, haven't we? So PSG is probably the away fixture you didn't want, but it's absolutely fine. Dortmund at home, that'll be an absolutely fantastic game. I'm really looking forward to that. From a football competition point of view and getting to the next round, can't ask for any more. As a fan, I'm a little bit disappointed maybe that there isn't a bit more glamour there. You know,
Like I say,
it's
there's
great.
no real glamour. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
trip to Frankfurt.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
it's,
the Dortmund tie at home is the glamour home tie. Monaco away is going to be a good game. What's the feelings around points to progress to the knockout stages? I can see us getting double figure points if you're not confident that you can win against Copenhagen and Bodo Glimt and Slavia Prague, and then picking up at least a couple of draws here and there, then we should be in the competition.
Yeah. So last season, it was 16 points. Aston Villa finished 8th.
Okay.
With 16 points, 5 wins, a draw,
that's
2
less,
defeats.
And that gets you straight through, doesn't it? So
that's automatic.
So to get into the playoff,
and then to the playoffs, so top 24, 11.
11, yeah.
So Club Brugge were 24th. They won 3, drew 2.
Yeah, so we should be getting 12 points quite comfortably. So 4 wins. We've got a very good chance of getting enough to go through first time. Even if you take away the PSG game, anything out of that is a bonus. You would like to think that you could go to Monaco, you could go to Frankfurt and get points, even if we don't win. And then you're looking at 2 of the 3 home games to get yourself through, really. It would be very, very disappointing not to progress to the next stage in some form or another from that draw.
100%. I mean, yeah, you look at, okay, away to Paris Saint-Germain, fine. We'll blob that one. But, I mean, even Dortmund at home, Dortmund are not the Dortmund of a couple of years ago.
Well, we got a great record against them. Again, they've tried to banter the club today, and this is annoying. So they've tried to dismiss Spurs. But our record against Dortmund, we've beaten them consistently, I think, certainly in the Champions League.
Yeah, I remember watching Sonny score a fantastic goal in Champions League against Dortmund a few years back.
Yeah.
No, for me, I look at those fixtures, and let's say Villarreal, Slavia Prague, Copenhagen at home. You got to win those 3, right? Surely we can win those 3. Let's say we get a draw against Dortmund. That's 10 points. We already know we can get a point against Frankfurt. We've been to Bodo and beaten them, and surely we'll win against Monaco. So, I reckon kind of upper reaches of the playoffs, maybe an opportunity to sneak into that top 8, maybe.
Yeah, one thing that might be different from last year, and that was the form of some of the big clubs last year in the Champions League was a bit odd. I mean, Real Madrid really struggled last year, and I'd be surprised.
Man City finished 22nd.
Absolutely,
yeah.
I'd be surprised if that happens again. But we'll see. And look, it's just good to be in it. And yeah, I'd be interested to see how Frank plays actually in European football, because of course he's not had that much experience.
No, but he's got massive amounts of Premier League experience, and it's not like in the 90s and 80s where European football was completely different, and you were coming up against teams that you didn't know what you were looking at. None of those teams will come with any surprises, will they?
And the one thing that Frank continually gets labelled with is how pragmatic and prepared and tactically astute he is. So, I mean, he's going to do his homework. He's going to set the team up for the team he's playing against. That's going to be the really interesting thing this season, because we might lose the swashbuckling excitement of Ange. What we get is perhaps a different view on how Spurs can play game to game. That's really interesting to me. That's really interesting that we can look at the midfield against Burnley and go, look at these young ones playing, and then we can look at the performance against City and talk about the high press and how high the centre backs were. This is what makes the bits between the games really interesting, because we get to talk about it and get excited about what's going to happen.
It's a really good point, actually. Yeah, it's a really good point. Is that, what is our first 11? I'm not sure I could tell you, because it probably changes game to game.
Yeah, and that's why we need a squad. And that's why we need the ability to chop and change.
Yeah, we can be excited about that Champions League draw.
Yeah. No, I think, as I say, you can't really ask for more, can you, than the way the season started. Goals, wins, haven't conceded a goal. So, yeah.
Haven't looked like we're going to concede a goal either. Not really. Haven't felt that, oh God, how have we not let in 5 goals? It's been absolutely solid, professional, compact, really, really good performances. So, yeah, can't ask for more.
So is this where we make our prediction for Saturday?
Bournemouth at home.
You know what's going to happen, don't we? You're going to lose 2-0.
Right. I'm going to say it because I think I've said it. I think me and Graham have said this, just waiting for the moment. But maybe now is the moment Kudus gets his first goal. I'm gonna lean into the positive start. I'm going to say we are going to concede our first goal, and for the 3rd game in a row, I'm going to predict a 3-1 scoreline.
Well, that's interesting because I was also thinking the same scoreline, 3-1. I watched a bit of the game that they played away to Liverpool, and they gave Liverpool a real good game, actually.
Yeah. Does that end 4-2, 4-3?
4-2, yeah.
4-2.
Liverpool beat them 4-2 in the end, but it wasn't really a 4-2.
No.
It wasn't really a 4-2 game at all.
Really put Liverpool under quite a lot of pressure in that game.
Yeah. I think we will be too strong for them. I think we will win 3-1. I am going to go with my goal scorer as I'm going to go with Solanke.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be good as well. Good for his confidence.
So interesting. I think that I'm positive about us getting a win. So I think they will score, but I think we'll win. I think we'll win 2-1, and also think Solanke will get off the mark because he's playing against his old club. And I love that perception that there is, and with no analytical backing. I'm sure someone's done it, and it might be true, it might not. But I love the fact that players just always seem like they score against the previous clubs.
Well, this is why I'm saving my Kudus prediction, because he 100% is scoring against West Ham.
And he's over celebrating in front of the crowd as well.
He's going to do a proper Adebayor.
Just do a lap of honour because it's at West Ham, isn't it? So,
Exactly. So, I'm already putting that in there for next week. Well, there you go. You heard it first. It's going to be 3 wins out of 3 in the Premier League. Who knows whether that puts us top of the league by the time we speak next. Let's hope so, and let's see if we actually manage to do a transfer deadline day transfer as well, and see who else we can bring to bolster our squad. But a very positive start to the season, and let's hope the optimism and the good stuff carries on for a few weeks yet.
Yeah, number of transfer rejections is like triggering memories of clubbing when I was 18. It's getting embarrassing.
On that note, let's end there. Come on, you Spurs. Let's do this.